was my first part ever because I could actually change my voice. And I had one line. It was great. Teddy Bear Christmas. Shout out.
Welcome to Working Better Together. I've got a real special treat for y'all. My friend Asia Rodriguez is our guest today, and we're going to talk about how theater informs our diversity, equity, inclusion work. Hold on tight. It's going to be a wild ride. I am so delighted to have Miss
Asia Rodriguez
with me here today, and let's get started. So Asia and I, we went to the same school, graduated at different times, but we got to know each other through theater.
Well, first of all, starting at University of Texas at Austin, I was scared to choose what I actually wanted to choose for college, which was obviously theater, because I felt like the world tells you you're not going to make any money. It tells you, this is just not going to be lucrative. It's a total dead end move, right? So I was pre-med undeclared. Adorable. Yeah, that was really adorable. But then when I went to Maryville, I was writing communications and theater double major. So it felt like, okay, this is going to get me through, and this will hopefully make me money later. And they have both been so instrumental in every single job I have ever had. Like, I think my theater degree is one of the most useful things, honestly, in DEI work, because it is storytelling. And that is how you get people to communicate across difference, is by hearing and actually telling and accessing their stories, and not just staying stuck in defensive,ness or anger or whatever, but actually, hooking in and then being able to tell that.
It's also the interpersonal stuff, the one-on-one, and then what people know you for.
Yeah.
And this balance of holding people accountable.
And hopefully it plants the seeds, you know what I mean? And it sinks in, or they have the moment where they're like, microaggressions, interesting. Maybe those are a real thing. And so using theater, it's not just entertainment, right? Because hopefully it is folding into that socialization piece, that it's not something that's going to go away. And it's palatable in a way that doesn't trigger them to just shut you down. When we talk about the way that people learn to live and survive in systems of oppression, they're taking in media, they're taking in all kinds of things every day, all day, that help sort of train us to be who we are, to be, hi, how are you? Fine. Hi, how are you? Fine. Disconnect, right? And so it's so hard in this work to learn to take care of yourself, because we've definitely sacrificed so much to try and survive. And then also to call people out or in, or however you want to say it.
I'm thinking about, is because of the things we've learned from theater, the skills and being able to project your voice, to be able to read an audience
Ooh, yes.
and ride the wave of the audience, and then and to your point is, how do we make this palatable enough where people disconnect? At the end of the day, when people think about diversity, equity, inclusion, all of these things come into their minds, right? And we don't know what that is. We don't know where they're getting their information from. We don't even know their own experiences. No. They don't even know
for real
of where all this stuff comes from, right? And so we're then asked to come into a room, into a crowd, make everybody be nice.
Yes.
And they know the session title is diversity, equity, inclusion, intersection, all those words,
Yeah.
right? And so when I think about our background in entertainment, what character do I need to play for the first 10 minutes to get people engaged?
Yeah. No, that. And what character do I need to play in the last 5 to 10 minutes so that maybe something that I said will resonate with you enough that you go and you do your own research rather than re-traumatizing somebody by asking them to educate you about their pain and trauma. And I frequently use, so what? Who cares? You know, like, why am I even here? Does this matter in the grand scheme of things? And get them to answer that. And that's where I really find some great moments in DEI work. Because people are like, because people are dying. This does matter. I'm like, yes, exactly. Because you, again, like you said, you don't know what stories, what lived experience they're bringing into a space. So it can be DEI work. It's personal. It's quote, air quotes, professional, right? It's revolutionary. It's gonna point some things out that you may have never ever had pointed out before, on a personal, on a systemic, on, the big dogs level, like, and literally you're asking for somebody to come in and show you about yourself, tell you about yourself. And so it is such a weighty job in that respect. And I do think, like we've been talking about, using elements of theater always helps. At least me. It's, 100%. It's one of my go-to skill sets.
So being a black male, full beard, 6 foot, 200 something pounds, I think something that's been interested and that's been helpful for me from theater is blocking. So when I'm facilitating, where do I stand? How do I stand? How much space I take up while people are processing this?
Yes.
Like, how large do I make myself? And then there are sometimes how timid I need to make myself in order for the learning objectives to be accomplished.
It even start, like, when you talk about blocking, not just with your body, but like when you take the traditional, I'm going to stand in front of you and there are chairs and an audience, and you completely blow that up and make it a circle. That changes all the dynamics, right? And you can't always do that because of size or whatever. And you may choose not to do that in specific rooms. But that, like, I think through all of those things.
So to your point, every slide, I'm not only, again, this is not only what I want you to learn, but every slide I'm also thinking about, how am I going to move my body?
Yeah.
How am I going to speak on this in particular so I can get the intended outcome?
How do you take care of yourself when you've had a really, like, challenging session?
I think there's different types of challenge. There's a challenge of where you wanted the group to land, they didn't. So it's sort of, like, what happened in there that I couldn't get them, or we couldn't get to that point, right? So that's one. So that from the actual facilitation part, right? It's right. What was happening in that room that we couldn't get to where we need to be? So that's challenging. Another type of challenge is the dynamics between people that's in the room. you're not able to, because you're only there for a certain amount of time. All these other things are happening in your head. That in itself, you haven't figured that out yet.
Right.
So that's like in between what's happening among them, right? And it's like, and also I think for me the hardest is when something happens in a room and it's triggering.
Yeah.
And somebody says or does something that reminds you of the system, what happened to you personally, what happened to, and you're in facilitation mode. So
Right.
all that floods your consciousness, but to show it would shut everything down. Everything you worked on in that room to make people find this meaningful, if it comes out, that's it. So I think a lot of people who do this work, well, not even say I'm not gonna put any numeric form on it. That's the risk of doing this work.
Yeah.
And I think it happens to a lot of people, if not all, when you enter into this work and somebody says something or does something and it's triggering to you and your own stuff. So I think depending on the challenge of leaving that, I think someone asked me, how do you deal with it? I think I told them, you get calluses.
Oof. Yeah.
It doesn't mean it doesn't hurt anymore. It doesn't mean that it doesn't affect you anymore. You just built a level of tolerance
Right.
to be able to deal with it, to get people where they need to be.
What I specifically am trying to work on lately is trying to show up and be as authentic as possible and even show that stuff so that I invite humanity into the room, right? Like through and
That's delicate.
it is, but I'm trying, because so often we are focused on perfectionism, right? We're focused on not acknowledging, not honoring each other's humanity. Like I said, I'm fine. It's great. See my Facebook page post today, I'm perfect. This is wonderful. And I think that specifically after the pandemic and all of the social media, that just explosion that I feel like we've been through, and the politics and all of the deaths and the murdering, the police brutality, all of that, we are just more and more siloed and trying to put on good faces, and like not racist faces. Look, I'm a good person. If I had $1 for every time somebody's told me they a good person, good people do bad things every day, all day. It just, I think I'm trying to really, really stay committed to and focused on bringing humanity into the room as much as I possibly can, even if I have to model it, which is hard. Different people see it and different people accept it based on power and how much power they have or do not have. I mean, in education as well, but that's power. So, yeah. And when it hits and when people can really, really connect and be like more human because I brought mine, that's such a sweet spot. It's such a great spot for people to actually really learn and then potentially change.
Yeah, I don't know if I could. I don't know if I could express myself in that. I mean, maybe I've seen other facilitators do it. Other Black male facilitators do it. But I think there's an intersectionality of being a Black male and sexuality.
Yep.
So I've seen black gay males be able to do that in a way where it lands where it needs to land, and since people are able to, if I authentically express how I want to express, so one of the things that I've wanted, so when we look at educators of K through 12, right, over 80% of K through 12 teachers are white, right? Oftentimes, when I walk into a room, I'm somebody's first black instructor, right. Black male instructor, right? Whatever they think about a black male, that's what they're seeing at that moment for me, right? So how do I coalesce that and also show them something different and or just me, right? And so there are times where I'm showing excitement. People see it as anger. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, and then my whole thing, do you give them that preview? Do you give them that
right?
You know what I mean? I don't.
Yeah. Like I said, I don't do it with a lot of people, but I try when I can. But I also think that I hold privilege in my multiracial identity. And I mean, I'm perpetually navigating that, having, the oppressor and the oppressed in the same identity, and trying not to just like prove I'm a good one, like 100%. You and I go into a room and they're gonna immediately potentially be like, oh, well, they're gonna have their own prescriptions based on who they're going to listen to, because some are going to be like, I know women do not tell me what to do, they cannot teach me, and then others are going to be like, no, I will never listen to anything coming out of a black man's mouth. You have to navigate your own identity in a whole different way in this work than in theater, because often with theater, they'll just I love blind castings, where they actually just, we're just going to put humans into the role, like in Hamilton, right? And it could be so dynamic and so amazing. But in our work, we are always there no matter how effective all of our PowerPoints are, and how effective and how much we've walked through, how many circles we've set up, like we got the good snacks, they still
name brand snacks.
Yeah, for real, not the generic stuff, right? Yeah.
Stuff.
But we have to navigate and protect at the same time our own identities.
And this is the first 15 minutes.
Yeah. I will say that having previously been an HIV prevention counselor and done all kinds of presentations around sexually transmitted infections and things like that, that was a great place for me to learn how to navigate those things, because people are so misinformed. We don't do a good job of talking about anything that seems like it could be life-threatening, right? Whether that's STIs or all the systems of oppression. But I do think I hold a lot of gratefulness for that learning that I was able to do. I highly recommend it. Teach about sex. What's up? So when you come away from, or you don't get a chance to come away from, if you're, a black woman, right? You wake up, black woman. You go into the space, you're a black woman. You never get a chance to unzip and be like a white man who doesn't have, you don't even know what it feels like to not have all those open cuts on you all day, every day. And so I think like it's calluses, but it's also an ability to like, okay, I'm bleeding. How much am I gonna, like, now I need to gauge how much am I gonna bleed in that space? Okay, I can't handle that right now because I just got gashed real good yesterday in a way that I wasn't expecting, in a place that I thought I was gonna be safe. And I can't do that one after I just did this one. Something that I learned in grad school was like, sure, you have black friends. Sure. So-and-so, you have black friends, but have you ever been to their house? Because that's the closest to where you actually can, and it's start to heal. Does that make sense? Because like, you're like, yeah, duh. You're like, of course it does. But you don't, like when you're invited into that space, that is a sacred, safe, healing space. Whereas people who don't have to be cut all day, every day by societal oppression get to decorate their space and show it off in a magazine, right? Like, you get to do that based on the trends, not based on what you need around you so that you can actually freaking heal. And I think even in college, people were always like, why are you so specific about what your room looks like? Because it is my space. It's where I can come back and not be your Mexican or your curvy woman. You know what I mean? Like, and no, like people just didn't understand that. Yeah. So I think in taking care of myself after these things, it's finding the people that I can take care of myself with, finding the space that I can be in that feeds something that I didn't even know that I needed to be fed. Because honestly, the first time I went to Maryville College, did not have the same mind, but 100% I started to lose my culture. I remember going home and hearing Tejano on the radio stations and feeling not good about it, feeling like it sounded less than in some way, shape, or form. And then through my education and through my coming into the work that I do now, I've healed that. I've acknowledged that. You know what I've had to grapple with some serious stuff around that. And it's lifelong healing, because you're never not going to be bleeding in some way, or you're never not going to be not worried about where the next cut is coming from. And when you don't expect them, yeah.
I be wanting to quit every couple months. I can do other things.
Yeah.
Because it takes a toll.
Yeah.
And so when you talked about your space, right, and I'm thinking about my space. So sometimes I'm on the road for weeks on end, and I cannot wait to get to my space. I've got art from South Africa, from Ghana, from Haiti.
Yep.
I've got my favorite books.
Yes.
I've got loved one pictures. Yep. I got floral sheets because my mom always put floor sheets on our bed. And I just sit. Yeah. Like, I'm not doing nothing. I'm just like, just black returning to me.
Yes. And the returning to the breath. Because when you are trying to survive, you breathe at a shallower pace so that you can take in, you're like trying to take in more oxygen. Your animal brain is trying to get you ready to run, even though my ankle won't let me run right now. But like, it's where you can return to that sort of meditative breath. And yeah, like I just got that space back in my life. And first time I set up my bed in this space, I was just like, but I have like string art from Mexico. I have this beautiful Dia de los Muertos painting done by a student. I have like almost like an altar with essential oils and sage and all of that stuff. And yeah, it's that like sacred, safe space. And I think early on I didn't necessarily have the knowledge that either that was what I was doing or that was what I needed, or that it was that important to me. And now it is so intentional, right? It's so intentional. Yeah.
I try to make sure it's clean, so when I come back, I can just.
Ooh, yeah.
So I'm always on the road, so you're packing, and I'm packing like this, right? And so it's like zip it all up, all right, let's make this, because when I return back, I just want to sit in here
and not have to perform, not have to teach, not have to be cut, not to just freaking be. Because unfortunately, that's a privilege.
being.
Just being. And it's when you're not allowed it, a lot of times you have to hide it, that you're in pain. Because you're not allowed to be in a space. Because we don't want to see your pain.
Nah, they don't.
No.
Not really.
Because then they would have to connect to the fact that the system is also making them be in pain.
So I was at a conference, and this was after the conference. This was like happy hour dinner.
Right.
So two friends of mine, another black, he's multiracial, Native American and black, myself, and a white colleague of ours. Okay. So we was catching up. So we was like, let's go have dinner, and then catch up. So we went to have dinner, not too far from where the conference was happening, and not a care in the world, thinking I'm safe. I'm among friends, right? And things happen to us all the time. I don't share too much because I feel like people take your stories and do what they want, and you it's like tantalizing, So I'm careful when and where I share stories, but shit happen all the time. So two white males walk up to us, and they're in the field. They're known for what they do. Respect them. I've seen them before. I know of them. I know of them. Spent some time interface with them, but I don't really know them for real, right? So they came up to us, and I did a session, and they were talking about the session I did and other sessions. So in the place, the restaurant was full with conference participants. Right. And he walks up to us, and he points to the guy who's multiracial. He's like, "You're intimidating." Looks at me, "You're scary," and looks at the white woman, "So I'll talk to you." In that moment, right? So I'm not necessarily representing myself, right? I'm at a conference. Mm-hmm. I'm representing the conference organizers.
Right.
And in that moment, I'm like literally thinking, how do I deal with this right here, right now, that holds him accountable,
Yes.
but also I'm a representation of the conference organizer right now in this role. And I still don't know if I did the right thing for me. And calluses, right? So it's like I didn't see it coming. It ruined that whole night. After that, I was like, y'all, I'm going back to my room.
Right to your space.
And I think for the other male, he was pretty like bewildered by it. She was in complete shock. She was just like, she a former law enforcement. She's doing working community stuff now, and it was just like, yeah, it was just that.
Because for me, what I'm thinking is that if you did a presentation that day, you already went, like climbed up the rocky stairs and here we go, let's do this, I got this, ready, and present. I'm worried about everybody and how they're going to interact with me, and here we go, and don't you fall out of line, okay, I got your back, you know what I mean? Like, and you already, you survived that.
We made it out.
Intact. And like, hopefully some folks learn some really good things. And so you're able to like, armor, take it off. And you're right, that's exactly when it's the hardest. Because I think we don't get the privilege of just having a natural reaction.
Right. Exactly.
There can be no
Right.
like barbecue Becky video for me, because then it's about Latinas.
I wanted to stand up.
Yes.
Tell me more.
Yes.
I would have came off scary, agitated, all these things. I sat down and just shallow breathing.
Something similar happened to me when I was sick once and in a pharmacy trying to get medicine. And I experienced a microaggression, I'll just say that. But I just wanted medicine. I couldn't breathe to get to my shallow survival breath. Like, I had like double bronchitis. I was in college, like it was bad. And so it's in those moments of extra vulnerability. Like that doesn't, and for you more than me, you have to suit up every single day you walk out I can kind of decide when I need to suit up. I feel like I need to suit up a little more in certain places, but yeah, that's when it really is rough, when you're just that like, yay, I'm just being, I'm learning. Yeah. Wow.
I told you. Thanks for joining. Thanks for listening. See you next time on Working Better Together.